118 days of no drinking alcohol. I'm so thirsty. And hard. Oh, baby. Actually, I feel pretty amazing. I eat a really healthy green smoothie almost every day. I've switched to almost just completely green smoothies, not even putting in fruits because I'm hardcore like that. And meditating every day as usual, going to the gym, had a good workout, had a good meditation. I had a great morning routine. Like my days are on fire. I'm on fire and I don't even need to drink to enjoy life. But I'm going to enjoy myself a cheeky little drink because I can, because I've earned it. I've earned myself the taste of sweet, sweet alcohol. Oh, yeah. Because I don't need it. I don't need anything. I just need me, myself, and mine to have a good time. Oh, yeah. As they say, in Soviet Russia, alcohol drinks you. Well, I don't need alcohol. I'm going to drink alcohol. It's not going to need me. I mean, it's not going to control me. You get what I'm saying by now. If I have a cheeky drink here and there, if I have a glass of champagne, some fine whiskey cocktail, whatever, if it's in my life, great. But if it's not, no big deal. My life is already awesome. And I'm already at 110% each and every day, doing the things that I love, working out, getting good sleep, eating good, healthy food, and spending good time with good people, always learning, always pushing myself to become harder, better, faster, stronger, and harder and smarter, and just making the most out of life. So yeah, those of you who have joined me for the last 30 days or a week or so leading up to my birthday, we're almost there. Yeah. We're almost there. And I just want to say congratulations to those of you who've made it this far. You know who you are. And we're going to celebrate hard this Saturday, either in person or digitally over the interwebs. For today's episode, we have Victor Ung. And Victor is an emotional intelligence coach for Asian men. He's the host of the Human Up podcast, as well as a co-host for Badass Asian Dudes. He's based in Seattle, and I'm in Seoul, right? So the way we had to schedule this call, it was 3 a.m. for me, and I was really, really tired and kind of out of it. So please bear that in mind. Appreciate your understanding and patience, because sometimes I might be a little scatterbrained with the conversation. But it was totally worth it. So I hope you listen to most of it and get something out of it. In this episode, we talk about the struggles of growing up in Asian cultures where men are not taught to properly express and deal with their emotions in a healthy manner, and how we can become better, more effective individuals by getting in touch with our emotions. This is sort of a general talk about emotional intelligence, just really touching the topic before I get deeper into it in future episodes. If this isn't already obvious to you, self-awareness is key to becoming the best version of oneself. Being in touch with your emotions, knowing how and why you feel what you feel, and how to deal with those emotions in a positive, productive manner is arguably one of the most important skill sets or mindsets you can have. You can heal past trauma. You can feel better about yourself as a human being. This applies to family, friendships, and business. I know as time goes on, I become better at controlling my emotions. More and more, I deal with people more openly, humbly, productively, positively, further unlocking my human potential instead of being locked down in my egoic past stories of who I am or what people are like or what I think they or the world should be. What I want for anyone listening to take away from this episode is that it's okay to admit we've had problems with our family or our upbringings. I want us to speak more frankly and openly so we're not scared of dealing with our past. We don't have to run away from ourselves. We don't have to run away from our pain anymore. I grew up in a dysfunctional household like so many other people, especially countless Asian families, especially Asian American families. If your story is anything like mine at all, I want you to know that I feel your pain very deeply. And it's okay to seek forgiveness, to forgive others, and to heal and seek happiness within yourself. It's nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, it's an opportunity for us as individuals to transcend our traumatic past in order to become excellent beings who rise to the top. It's always a work in progress, especially when it comes to improving one's relationship with one's parents, if you've had a traumatic relationship with them. I found a working model of forgiveness, acceptance, and love. It's not perfect. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying, and I'm much better off for doing it. Every recall is a reframe. I want to reframe all my past negative experiences with family and my culture as necessary events for me to become a kinder, more compassionate, and empathetic, realer person. Seek mentors, people whose lives seem to be in a dope spot where you want to be. Go meet those people, hang out with them, and see if you can make your own version of a reality you want to live and experience. If you need help or guidance or you have any questions, well, you can always hit me up and I'll do my best to help you. I would love to do that. I would love to be that person for you if I can. By the way, I met Victor through the Badass Asian Dudes Facebook group. If you want to join this awesome community and connect with awesome Asian brothers around the world doing super cool stuff and living life on their own terms, please hit me up and I'll invite you. You can follow Victor on Instagram at _Victor Ung and enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for listening. And if you found any value in it at all, especially to my Asian brothers out there, if you find this of any value at all, please share it with a friend and talk to them about it. And let me know what you think later on. Hit me up so that we can all become the gods of emotional intelligence made. Oh, yeah. You know what time it is. It's mime time. Oh, baby, good gravy. And we are live. What time is it? It's mime time. And for today, we have a very special guest. And I say that because all my guests are very special in my eyes. We have Victor Ung. Did I say that right?
Yeah, almost.
Ung, sorry.
All good.
I should know that. Yeah. Victor, how are you doing today?
I am pretty good. I actually just had a little bit of coffee, so a little hopped up, but decent.
That's good. Yeah, it's you said it's 11 a.m. over there earlier?
Yeah, 11 a.m. in Seattle. I can't believe it's 3 a.m. for you. So
That's right. It's almost 3:11 here in Seoul, South Korea. And the thing is, like, sometimes life gets in the way, scheduling gets in the way, and you want to meet with someone or you want to get something done. But no matter what, there's always going to be headwinds or obstacles in life that kind of get in the way of the things that you say you want to do. And so for me, this is kind of like an opportunity for me to just test myself and to be like, can I pull off an after midnight podcast interview like this? So thank you for this opportunity, Victor. I really appreciate it. Would you mind telling us a bit about yourself, your background, where you come from, and all that good stuff? I can't wait to hear it.
no, thanks for having me. First of all, I appreciate you challenging yourself even with your sleep. That's hardcore right there. So
It's also kind of stupid. Sorry to interrupt. It's not ideal. Like these days, I'm actually about getting 7 to 8 hours of full sleep. But for this, I made an occasion to talk with you at this time.
all right. Well, hopefully you can get that sleep. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I think we, you know, I definitely resonated a lot with your own story here that you share in this podcast, and it's um, super cool. So for me, it's a lot of somewhat similar, kind of a different path, but um, I I think I grew up very like top heavy, I'd say, very like logical, rational, practical person. I was like, that first generation, uh, you know, American born kid with immigrant parents who really valued like, material success and like, uh, getting good grades, getting to a good college, save money for, retirement, take care of your elders at the end. And I think those are great values that they instilled. Um, I think I took it just a little too far where I like only focused on that, like having to get the best grades and um, doing things that were more stable, more secure, more familiar, right? And kind of gave up a lot of the more softer side of me, I guess, the more intangible kind of uh, skills, right? And and so getting into technology, I was half half a decade into my technology career as a product manager. I also just love that work, but realized that there was so much in me that I wasn't able to sort of manage, especially a lot of the emotions that came up in that place, like dealing with the anger that I had with maybe other coworkers, maybe out of frustration or irritation with them. Maybe it was the the I don't know, maybe it was a frustration that I was feeling in terms of burnout, in terms of not feeling fulfilled at work, but not really knowing what to do with that. Um,
Could I interject for a
yeah,
second?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious, is there a salient example or a particular story you have in mind when, you lashed out at a coworker or something?
Yeah, exactly. So I was about to get to that, after all of that kind of almost bottled frustration, um, there was one of the clients that I was working with, um, voiced their anger and kind of just I think overall it was a very stressful environment that we're all in, but the client kind of blew up on me and said like, "Why aren't you, following the process and like, you're causing all the problems or whatever." Um, and and so yeah, I kind of responded or retaliated in a way that ultimately let me kind of they kind of put you back on the bench in consulting where if they kind of roll you off the client project and now you're just kind of you don't have work, um, basically fired. So I was super like taken aback by that too, you know, and that totally like blindsided me. Like I remember going to breakfast with a friend and the day after and just casually another day at work, and then I got a call from the manager. It's like, yeah, uh, the client doesn't want you to come in anymore. And I'm like, wow, you know? And so that was one of those examples where I was like, okay, there, I could be blaming, I could find all the excuses for like why maybe it was their fault or they blew up or whatever. And but I was more so curious on like how I could have responded better in that situation too. And it was this lack of just being able to, um, be more aware of even the emotions that I was feeling and know how to be more assertive, but also productive in how to communicate that, right? To not let it get in the way of work or of relationships. Um, and so anyway, I that was a couple years ago, and since then did a lot of this inner work to realize that the emotional intelligence about us is like kind of at the core of us as human beings. And I saw that lack thereof also made me realize how much I struggled in like being assertive with girls, like in my relationships, developing deeper relationships with them and with also friends and with my passion projects, like feeling really connected to something, connected to work. And yeah, so that kind of led me on this whole path to now learn everything I can and um, yeah, just learn everything I can about it and helping other people really slow down and connect with themselves, kind of um, what is it that they're really feeling and how can we use that for the better, how can we use that to create more deeper lives.
How old were you when you had this sort of traumatic work experience? It's interesting to me. So it was something that happened at work. You lived most of your life kind of following this Asian American model, and then it seemed to me like this was the catalyst, or this was a turning point in your life where you said you got fired or the equivalent, and then it was painful, but at the time it sparked you to start this journey. How old were you at the time?
Around 27. Yeah, I'm 30 now.
27. Okay, so in the course of 3 years, how far have do you feel like you've made on this? How much progress do you feel like you've made on this journey?
Yeah, I've definitely made it quite far, but I also know and I've realized that I have so much longer to go. Like the interesting thing about this work is once you kind of develop this awareness about it, it's like almost in a way opening a can of worms. You're like, oh my gosh, there's so much work I have to do. But I know I have come a long way since then, for sure. So, um, yeah,
Yes. So, I didn't mention it earlier, but for the audience, Victor Ung is all about emotional intelligence, and he's also a big proponent of Asian men seeking emotional intelligence. And I want to ask Victor, what is emotional intelligence to you? If you could describe it for the audience.
yeah. So I'd say emotional intelligence. Yeah, everybody has different definitions of it. Um, a lot of people might think of it as being able to be empathetic, be able to relate to people. That's a really big part of it. Uh, I like to I like to say that it's being able to act or yeah, being able to act productively in spite of the negative emotions that you feel. Um, and so that can get that you can apply in so many ways, right? So being able to um, bounce back from the fears that you might have or the stress or the anxiety that you might be feeling in whatever situation. um, just as a work example, maybe like the stress of you know overwhelming amounts of information or the changing deadlines, or so kind of being able to be adaptable to that. um, and then also just being able to really act in spite of that fear. So for me in entrepreneurship, right, there's so much that goes in there of fear of being judged, fear of failing, fear of um, being called out or being criticized, or lots of these emotions can be limiting. And so emotional intelligence is really being able to become aware of those feelings, and then knowing how to sort of regulate it or manage it so that it doesn't really get in the way of what you do, of how you behave, and um, and so really being able to act in spite of those negative emotions.
I think that sounds great. And so, recently, what's something that you found either in your work life or your personal relationship or your family relationship? What's something that over the years you thought, oh, you know what? I reacted this way to my mom or my dad or my friend. And it's because I put this time to put work into myself. Is there an example you could share of maybe some kind of recent realization?
Yeah, kind of like a benefit from having done this work now of what I've seen.
Exactly. Yes. What are the practical implications or benefits of being emotionally intelligent for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, yeah, there's kind of a lot. I don't know what to pick, but um, I'd say, let's see, I'd say it's with one of my really good friends that I've um developed a really like just a really like deeper relationship with. Um, when we're actually able to like talk about the real shit, you know what I mean? Like kind of like the fact that our lives are I don't know, we talk about lots of different things, and I'm kind of really scattered right now, so I apologize. But
It's fine, bro.
yeah, it's that coffee. It's just like woo. But um I'm actually gonna use a different example. With my dating life, I'd say it's being able to, be a lot more assertive and straightforward and confident with what I express, with what I want, um, with anything that happens in the relationship, or you know, um, so recently it's being able to be more assertive with that, like confident with, all right, like this is the type of relationship that I want. Um, this is what I want in my life. This is what I want to do moving forward, and kind of letting go of, you know, trying to be perfect or trying to uh please everyone, especially in dating. I always found myself to be like, how can I be liked? You know what I mean? Like how can I like do all the things to impress, or whatever. Um and it was a lot of like losing myself in that. I wasn't really able to be um be myself, really. um
I'm wondering, are you an only child?
no, I am actually the oldest of three boys.
Oh, you're the oldest. I'm the youngest of three boys. So for me, I think the way that's shaped me growing up is that because I was in Korean we say maknae, which means like the youngest one. Like I'm the baby brother. I'm the little baby brother. I got all this attention growing up, and I got all this leniency. Like maybe my parents would punish my older brothers who were much older. Maybe they would be much more stringent on them for not doing their chores or for the grades or whatever. But they were so much more lenient for me. Like, oh mime, oh our little baby mime, is he's so cute, right? But they'd be very harsh to my older brothers, like you can't do that. Why didn't you do that? But for me, like my brothers would literally after they finished class at high school, they would have to go work with my dad in construction, like working on siding or windows or roofing tiles for homes. But like I would just be staying home and playing video games because I was a lot younger. I
Mm.
was in elementary school. They would be like in high school or college. So for me, the way I think I grew up is I grew up seeking attention, and I because of all the attention that was given to me. So I think I'm just like naturally an attention seeker, which I don't think or like being an attention whore, right? Like that's seen as a bad thing, but I don't think that's necessarily a negative trait to be prone to seeking attention. It's about the place where you come from, and also I think uh coming from attention seeking is also like I've been a big people pleaser like my whole life, and I think it also stems from my parents fighting each other when I was like since I was a little baby, right? I feel like this traumatic background like refrigerator hum of like bad emotion or negative emotion from my childhood, from like when my mom and my dad were yelling at each other, or my dad maybe threw something at my mom or even hit her, and my mom was just like, I'm leaving, I'm never coming back. And as a kid, as a baby, even though I don't have the words for it, even though I don't have like all this language faculties developed, I know primally that I can't live, or I feel as though I can't live without either parent. I mean, I need both to survive. And as a kid, I can see both sides. I'm impartial. I need both mom and dad. But mom and dad, in this moment, they hate each other. They're throwing stuff at each other. And so for me, I'm just like, mom, dad, can't we all get along? I think one of my first primal childhood fears is like my mom and dad being in a big fight, and then forcing me. They're both looking at me. I have to look like to the left and I look to the right. And then my mom and dad like, pick me or I won't love you anymore.
Oh,
and and I feel like a lot of people go through something similar. And I think because of that, I've become a big people pleaser. I want to please both mom and dad. And so like the problem with that is that maybe people might see me as two-faced, or that people might see me as always playing to all the sides at once, or they might question my loyalty. But really I'm just a very empathetic person who can see the sides of everything, and I could extrapolate that. Like we could all say that we're all humanity. Like we're all one big family, and I love mom and dad. I don't want us to fight. So can't we all just get along? But anyways, what you said really resonated with me, so I just wanted to share that. You know, it's
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing that too. I completely resonate with that. My parents and grandparents bicker all the time, um, and they're my parents are now divorced, but because of that, because of just all of that miscommunication that happens, and they literally needed to pull me in to be like, who's right, who's wrong, and uh, how are you supposed to do that as a kid? Pick between parents. And so
it's really unfair.
totally, exactly,
It's fair. Like I didn't
exactly.
deserve it. You didn't deserve it. Like this is just the life and the family and the cultural situation we were born into, man. Like what is
Yeah,
this world?
right, right. Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that. Um, and I think that is a big, kind of result that happens is like people pleasing and avoiding conflict, trying to mediate so much. I kind of like personality tests. Say what you will about them, but like they do have pretty cool like awareness e- exercises, really. And one of them is that I do find myself as being that like harmonizer, right? Do you know the Enneagram at all?
Yeah, and I think I've taken the Myers Briggs test, and like I'm like ENFP or INTJ depending on the mood, but it's been a while.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know actually. I don't have them all memorized or anything. I just kind of look at my own. But
I know
um,
I'm a people pleaser, and I know
yeah,
I'm a harmonizer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's pretty cool that we have that commonality because I think anyway, so that really explains a lot, right? And I think what happens is maybe we lean too far into that and we don't then, become more assertive with ourselves, with standing our ground, with uh really really going after what we truly want and being okay with that, being okay with being selfish and wanting to um do things that will really build us up and fulfill us, right? Um, and so that's uh that's actually one thing, and I appreciate bringing up the parents too, um, because I think at one point I finally did stand my ground, and I was like, Mom, Dad, if you literally can't communicate with each other right now, like get a divorce. And it was such a hard thing for me to even say. Like I said this all in like a temper tantrum, right? I said it's like literally like stomping my ground and be like, like it was pretty bad. But I think that was a really big awareness thing for my parents too. Like maybe you're right. Maybe this isn't supposed to work, and um uh I, I think we're all better for it. Really, like this was when my younger brothers were also in the house, and um, it wasn't a good environment for us, to just hear all the fighting all the time. So yeah, so I kind of finally stood my ground and really like really really called it for what it is, and I think that I'm kind of seeing that transition into your next question when we're talking about Asian parents too. Like, um, it's it's now something that we're all better for, and that for me to um, be able to have like separate conversations with each of them, and really being able to like listen, uh, I think is one of those things that as a first generation maybe Asian American son can be hard to really do, like it requires a lot of patience and a lot of like emotional labor to actually hear them out. And I think that's kind of one positive thing that has come come from that.
Yeah, I mean that stuff isn't easy. I want to ask, when you had this moment, when you said, "Mom and Dad, maybe you should just get a divorce." Did they listen to you? What was their reaction at the time? Were they like, "Oh, maybe Victor's right"?
Yeah,
What did they
yeah.
say?
They I think they were very surprised, and they're like, I don't even remember exact reaction, but it was probably something like, "Wow, even our son is really like saying that we should not be together," kind of thing. Um,
Would you be able to, if you don't mind sharing, can I ask what do you think the main conflict or point of friction was between your parents?
yeah, I think at the core of it really is the miscommunication. They were just not on the same page with each other, and so all the different things they actually fought about were so trivial. Like, just doesn't it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but it was really them battling and just expressing themselves or uh, understanding each other. They just weren't really compatible in that way. Um, my dad was kind of a very um, he assimilated pretty quickly into America. He really loved America. He had Caucasian godparents. He was pretty like entrepreneurial and kind of really loved that American dream. My mom came from a little more of a traditional side of things. They were her family came from farmers, you know, and and there was so money came up a lot, right? Because just whole different money mindset, really, or like ways to kind of view money or have a perspective of money and also manage it. Um, and then yeah, so it was really at the core of it. I think it's also, as I'm learning more about this as well, it's um it might have been a difference between like a growth mindset and a scarcity mindset as well, where um if without allowing the other to really want to take risks, to want to like um you know just continue growing, it's staggering, right? It's like, yeah, anyway, so I think there's that tension um of just not really fully supporting each other.
I see. And for me, my parents never divorced, but my father passed away back in 2016, and although they didn't divorce, sometimes I wonder if maybe that would have been the better choice for my parents, because there would be these periods where my mom would run away. This is more than a handful of times like in my life, where since I was a kid, she would be away for, I don't know, it could have been as short as a week, 2 months, to maybe even a year or two. And so I always resented my mother for doing that. But later on, as I grew up to be an adult, and I like pieced together of like how my dad treated my mom, and the way he was, if not physically violent. I mean, I remember him hitting my mom like when I was a kid. I do remember seeing that. But then, like, like middle school onwards, like I never saw him hit her physically again. But of course, there were like vicious fights and very, emotional arguments. So I can understand why my mom would want to run away at times from my dad, because living with him was just too difficult. I can appreciate that more now. And sometimes I wonder if my dad was just born in a better situation, like born with education. He didn't even get to go to middle school. He was just, I think I feel like I'm the same person that my dad is fundamentally. Like I have his blood. It's just that I was lucky enough to be born in a better situation. Do you ever feel like that with your parents?
If
Isn't that a weird question?
yeah, yeah, no, like how things could be different, right?
Right.
Um, I I don't know. I definitely feel a lot of privilege even for where I am given all of that, all that's happened. Can you actually maybe ask your question one more time? Right.
Oh, do you ever think like, oh, in another situation, maybe they didn't need to divorce. If there was, maybe in a different like background, or if it wasn't, do you think there was any one particular cultural factor or something that made them divorce?
Mm, yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about that. I think um
I mean, and maybe that's not like a proper question. Maybe that's not a proper way to reframe it. But I just, it's just the thought just popped into
no,
my
for
mind.
sure, for sure. It is interesting because I feel like maybe in an alternate universe, what could life be like, you know? Um, and and I feel that uh, I guess I'm biased for the path that it did take, like um, I kind of appreciate how it went down, but um, because at the same time, like if they did stay together, I don't know if it would have been for the better, you know? Like, it really was this trajectory that I saw that would have, just not allowed either of us to be happy or any of us in the family to be happy in it,
I
but I am.
see.
Mhm.
Well, do you speak with both your parents? Are you on speaking terms? Like, can I ask what your relationship is like? Has it improved since they've separated?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I do talk with them, both, my dad's in Nevada right now. Be kinda weird if you listen to this episode actually, but, um, but, he's in Nevada right now, and so we do talk on the phone quite often, maybe, like, once a quarter or a little bit more than that, if anything, and I actually did talk to him a couple days ago for Father's Day, and, um, it it's like, it's definitely improved since then, right? Where they don't have to stress out about just all the arguing that they were doing, and they can actually focus on their life and really look in and anyway, so I am developing deeper relationships with both of them, and I think it's still a work in progress, but um
Well, yeah, that's great, and I think it's fine, and it's totally cool to admit that it's a work in progress because
mhm,
I think, um, I also, you really think about it, where this is kind of like unexplored terrain, like in a video game. You're playing like
yeah.
Age of Empires or StarCraft or whatever, and you're sending out units, you're sending out
Yes.
scouts.
Into the
And
fog.
this is actually, yeah, it's actually for like, the Asian American community, us communities of, like our subculture, our Asian diaspora subculture growing up in America or the West. This is the first time in our like culture, in our diasporas, respective diasporas, histories, right? That we're kind of coming to this point of higher consciousness, being able to reflect on our parents' lives and their parents' lives and just kind of work out like, well, why did we grow up that way? And where did this
Yeah.
come from? Where did this pain come from? Why did I turn
Mhm.
out this way? How did I turn out this way? And so, no one tells you what the benchmark is for to have a positive relationship with your Asian parents who grew up in a different culture, who have a different no one gives you a benchmark, right? And so for me growing up, I see other families, I see other of my friends' families and I see the relationships that they have with their parents. And I could also appreciate that, my white friends' families or my black friends' families, they had issues of their own as well. And they were different in different gradients. But, everyone goes through a rough time. But no one but me, especially growing up, like when I was the only Asian kid with the only Asian family in the neighborhood and throughout like North Carolina and Kansas and into Rhode Island, where I grew up, like it was also very like challenging because I felt like, oh, like I'm the only Asian kid who has to deal with Asian parents in my neighborhood. It's one thing if you grow up with other Korean Americans, say in NYC or LA, because of course there's so many Koreans there. But if like you're the only Korean or the only Asian person in Overland Park, Kansas around for
Mm,
the most part, it's kind of hard to relate to other people. You feel very lonely. You feel very isolated. So I want to
mm,
tell anyone listening to this, like, like the relationship you have with your parents and, the struggles that you may have, like it's okay to deal with, it's okay to be experiencing those things as painful as it may be. Like, um, don't worry, like we all grew up very lonely and like feeling misunderstood,
yeah,
so I think this is a great opportunity for us to kind of like be the first sages, be the first veterans and the first, so we can like impart the wisdom onto the younger generation, our younger brothers and sisters of Asian cultures all over the world. Know what I'm saying? So that's why I really appreciate what you're doing with your podcast, Human Up. I
thank
just want to
you.
say, like, I think, like, our voices using the power of the internet, right, in the 21st century, like, this is such exciting stuff. Because when you and I were kids, right, 56K modems, like, we didn't have this.
Right,
We couldn't like listen to like older Asian bros who went
right,
through some hard times and could hear their wisdom and their stories. If you were lucky, you like actually knew someone like in your church or school, an older Asian brother who like, hey man, like I went through some stuff too, and this is what I think. If you were lucky, maybe you had some mentors like that in person. But now like me, mime, 14, 13, 15-year-old mime, if he was if there's some 15-year-old version of me right now, he can listen to this. Whereas when I was actually 15, there was no podcast like this. There
yeah,
was no badass Asian dudes. There was no human up. But
yeah,
now, and there was no mime time. But look, we're part of this amazing movement where we can grow and we can, you know, help foster understanding, right? And I think it's such a beautiful thing. Like when I really think about it, like it blows my mind. Like I want to cry
totally.
just thinking about it.
I know. Man, again appreciate you bringing that up because I'm like getting goosebumps about that too. The fact that like the internet, the time that we're in, you know,
It's not just for porn.
don't know exactly. Yeah, yeah, or like, dancing girls on TikTok or something, Um, uh, totally, and I think, it is interesting that I found myself to gravitate towards that, as I, like, dove into podcasts and videos and books um, that so many people like passing down, but from the Asian side is still very new, like y- it- the um the personal development industry as a whole is very white, as with any industry. um and so like hearing other Asian voices, especially breaking that stigma of being able to like admit to or embrace the struggles that we have, the pains that we have, and being able to express that. Like I never saw my dad cry, I never saw my uncles, express any of these like quote unquote weaker emotions, right? That they were able to feel comfortable almost um uh uh I don't know, I guess stepping down, right? Like maybe they viewed it as a ladder. They're like they didn't want to like step down, especially when it comes to, age and respect for the elder, you know?
Right, and it's a sign of weakness,
Exactly, exactly. Like
supposedly.
supposedly, right? And maybe that came from the culture, maybe that came from their own generations, or their parents or grandparents, and it is really cool, like you said, that now we have these voices, that we can communicate to anyone around the world who's willing to listen. Like, super mind blowing for sure. And coming from the technology industry, that's what also excites me. Like, I am definitely a technology optimist. You know, uh, I very much am excited for AI and for like all this cutting edge stuff, and it but it comes down to being able to use it correctly as humans, and it comes down to making sure that we are mindful and also intentional with the technology that we do develop, and but also from a consumer standpoint with the technology, like how we use that technology. um so that's another big kind of part of this emotional intelligence that I like to communicate is like, um if we can connect deeper to ourselves and kind of the why and our intentions behind things, like how our emotions drive our behavior, um, that could really help us be able to use technology for the better to actually like improve ourselves to kind of um, live more deeper, meaningful, fulfilling lives. So
Yeah, and in a way, it kind of makes sense to me. Like, I mean, we're Asian. We like using computers and we like using the internet and technology, right? So it makes sense for us to, uh, for certain of us individuals to, gravitate towards digital media, right?
yeah,
Online media, and also because there's so many of us, I think, out there more than we realize, of just like introspective Asian dudes who had like a rough upbringing and like no one to talk to about it. So then eventually, like they go through a deep period of introspection.
yeah,
And I think there's this particular flavor of Asian Americans who, like, because of this this identity crisis, or the experiences that life puts us through, this Asian American filter experience. There's a certain subset of us that become very introspective as a result of it, and therefore very emotionally intelligent. And so, in a way, like, because I went through all that crap, I went through, the struggles with my parents fighting with each other, with my brothers, and growing up in a very dysfunctional household with lots of, low negative vibration energy. I'm Because that was so painful for me, I wanted to know, even since I was a kid. I was like, why is this happening? Like,
mhm,
why are my parents fighting over stupid reasons, stupid trivial reasons? I don't want to live like this. Like, we shouldn't live like this. Like, as I think we all know as kids, like when our parents are fighting, over like trivial matters, we all I think it makes sense for us to all feel deep down inside, like, this doesn't really make sense. Like, is this natural? Is this what normal is supposed to be like?
yeah,
I mean, the sad is we get desensitized to the point that, yeah, it does become normal. But I don't think that's how it should be. That's how I thought
yeah,
even when I was a kid. So, like, I tried to talk to my parents. I tried to, like, but I couldn't speak Korean. So I tried in my best, like, in my best English, to communicate to them in their broken English. But it was so frustrating, right? Because the wall was too thick, and so I really wanted to, like, focus on that, and it made me very introspective, and it made me like, why does my mom and dad act like they? And then later on, it's like, well, why do I react that way? And
mhm,
it's made me a much more empathetic person. It's made me much more compassionate, and because of the different things, not necessarily like the cultural thing of my growing up with Korean parents, but also just moving around a lot, right? Which can happen to any kid. I had to move from one place to another, and I always had to make new friends since I was a kid. So moving is a very traumatic experience for a kid, right? Who's like in elementary
yeah,
school. You have all your friends. You're used to one part your life
yeah,
being in this one geographical region. You move to another place, and then, like, I cried, and I fought with dad, like, mom, dad, like, I don't belong in Raleigh, North Carolina. Charlotte, that's our real home. Why are we here? I hate this place. I want to
right,
go
right,
back. And then I lived in Raleigh for a few years, and I make friends, and like, oh, this place is great, I never want to leave. And they're like, all right, we're gonna move to Overland Park, Kansas. I'm like, what? No, we're not moving. Like, I was in disbelief.
right,
um And then we moved to Kansas. It's like, wow, Kansas sucks. Kansas is stupid. I hate this place. I hate every moment I'm here. I resent it, you know. And then like after a year of going through that, of living there, like, you know what? I actually have some friends, and there's Edward Park. He's another Korean dude who lives like not too far from me, and like, like I actually have some friends now, even though like I was like an angry little kid who didn't want to listen in
Mhm.
class and whatever. And then it's like, oh, okay. Like, I just as soon as I was getting used to living there for at the end of fifth grade, it's like, oh, and mom, now we got to move to New England. We have to move to Rhode Island. I'm like, what? So what I realized from like these kinds of experiences that were painful for me is that what they did for me is whenever I went to a new location, I had the realization that whoever I may meet and whoever I may befriend may be only there for a short time. Like I
Mm.
might leave the state and I might lose them or never see them again. So actually, I should be, instead of shying away from the world, instead of resenting the world, instead of like, turning my back on people or like being angry at people or resenting people for being there when I feel like for for resenting other people that I'm there, right? It's not their fault. Instead of doing that, I should open up. Instead, I should connect. And so that's how I have this ability to wherever I go in the world, I can just make friends on the spot. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's changed my life, and it's made me the most amazing friendships, and it's
Yeah.
led to the most amazing conversations, like this one with you. And it's it's like, I mean, how priceless is that? The ability to just make friends wherever you go, by connecting with people like instantly.
Yeah.
Well, that had I had to suffer. I had as a kid, I had to go through the pain of moving, right? And then dealing with my parents not understanding me and me trying my best to understand my parents, even when they didn't want to understand me, right? And then the pain of them still not reciprocating that, right? I had to experience all these things so that I could become the person who I am today. I want to share this with people. Like, it's okay. Like, and it's cliche BS, but like everything happens for a reason. I'm gonna take a break. I'm just
That
listening.
that was I was very much listening, and I think it's really being able to look at those pains, really. I think it can be so scary for so many of us, and it can be uncomfortable, it can be unfamiliar, it could be almost depressing or like too heavy, and it's easy for us to avoid that or like push it off for later, or maybe drink a bunch or take some prescription pills or look up porn, or go like do anything to suppress that or not really look at it, right? And um and so and so like if we can really instead question that, like you said, like challenge it, like why is this happening, or where is this coming from, or what context is this, or what triggers are creating this, and it can be really powerful, when we can challenge that and look at those blind spots. So I know I'm still doing it. I know I have many blind spots in it, and it's but already just challenging that, I think, is that word I like to use here, is um and challenging ourselves. uh
Yeah,
there's so
right.
much more
Because
potential in that. Yeah.
right, because there aren't a lot of people who've come before us, right? So we're
Yeah.
we're the pioneers, and so we have to kind of discover and like
Yeah.
define our boundaries and like kind of envision and realize like our criteria for like what is a healthy family life, anyways.
Right.
Or like what if I raise kids, like how do I raise them in a positive, in a much better loving
Right.
uh way than say my parents did for me. um
No,
and
yeah.
yes, what do you want to say?
Oh, no, or did you want to finish? Yes.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, no disrespect to our Asian parents or to my
Yeah.
own parents.
Yeah.
And like I also kind of want to get into perhaps like, what is like a positive working like mental framework for dealing with your Asian parents, especially if they've been abusive, right, in any sort of way, or especially if they're just like, I don't know, just jerks, right? Like depending on the situation, right? Everyone's different, but I want to foster more of this kind of discussion. Like, what's a positive way to talk to your mom, and
Yeah.
how do you kind of reach out to her even when she's being stuck in her own ways?
Hmm.
Just that's just an example. Right. And
Yeah.
it's also tricky for us to talk about this because being Asian, right? We don't it's not like socially, it's not culturally acceptable for us to talk smack about our parents. But I feel
Exactly.
like there needs to be a spectrum, there needs to be a community. There needs to be people out there who are voiced like, yo, our Asian parents sucked. Right. Like they were just awful human beings. And a lot of it, I think, is this Confucian BS, right? There needs to be people who can say this stuff, I
Hmm.
think. And I think there's also people who say like, you know what, our parents did the best that they can, and there's so many beautiful things about them that we should admire, like our parents' generation. And so I want to kind of like affirm like the emotional energies of all these things because I think
Yeah.
through all this noise, we can find the truth that resonates with us, so that we can live practical day to day relationships that are healthy with our parents. And of course, sometimes it's just like for your own personal health or like well being. Um, you might not want to talk with your mom, right? You might not want to see your mom, but aside from that, I think there are positive ways that this can be like a real spiritual practice for us as individuals.
Yes. Man, that's totally that's powerful. I think yeah, how do you interact with your parents, right? And it really is dependent on, like, obviously, I don't know you, whoever is listening to this, right? I don't know what circumstances or exactly what your situation was like, or what your parents were like, or what that history was, and I think so. It really is going to be very dependent, but I think it really comes down to to being able to listen. You know, it does require almost an investment of like an emotional energy or emotional labor, I'd say. Um, and I know, again, it could be different for everybody. Maybe you have been doing that and you still don't necessarily get the return that you're looking from your parents, or that reciprocation. And maybe that is then the question you have to ask yourself is, is it better to limit contact then? Is it better to, you know, um, just be cordial, but not necessarily, you know, uh, become like maybe intertwine your lives too much, right? Sometimes there is a breaking off point that, again, will also allow you to flourish if you can find your own family, find your own friends, find your own support. Um, I don't know. These are all hard conversations, and it's going to be different for everybody. So I actually like talked to another an Asian Canadian mom on my podcast, how to deal with Asian parents. And you know, there it really, I think it sums up to um, really understanding yourself from the start. Really understanding what are the emotions that you're actually experiencing first of all. And what's the extra step from that? Is it anger? But like, what is that anger? Is it frustration? Is it irritation? Is it maybe just a difference in moral values? Is it something that they're not um acknowledging? So there's all these other deeper questions to ask, and I think it starts from that, and knowing that maybe you can't change people. Maybe the parents aren't going to change, but that you can use this as a point of reflection for yourself, and maybe open up the space that potentially can create a conversation, but also releasing yourself from the expectation that it will. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great. And you can't change other people, but you can change yourself. You can lead a horse to
Right.
water, but blah 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 blah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but it's true. It's
Right.
and so I think that's also a very good like spiritual psychological discipline, I think, for
Yeah.
me myself, like over the years dealing with my mom, because there was a period of years like after a certain incident with my parents, and the thing is like I'm mostly open, or like I'm at a point where like I'm pretty comfortable sharing these stories and just being frank with people who I've just met or hardly know.
Yeah.
Even just you, right? This is like our first
Right.
personal one-on-one chat, and so because like I've come to a point. This took time, but I'm not afraid of like what other people are gonna think of me, because if they listen to me, I know they'll know by hearing the sound of my voice that I've thought about these things in an intelligent way, right? As best as I could. So, when I had like a falling out with my parents a few years ago, well, a few years before my dad passed away, like I swore to myself that I wouldn't talk to my mom again. And then as time went on, like I went through my own like spiritual journey, and then different things happened in my life that culminated in my mom appearing at a cafe in the neighborhood that I live in here in Seoul. Like she was in America, she was living in America, but then I found out she was in Seoul, and then the next day she's at this cafe that like I frequent.
Just
Just
serendipitously.
yeah,
Wow.
just yeah, serendipitously. I mean, I think I think she found out that I was going to that cafe, but it was still a very serendipitous thing. And anyways, like from that point onward, like I could have just like ran away because I was shocked like when I saw her. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
believe her. Like I was just like, and I didn't know till if I had to scream or cry because like I was very upset with her.
Mm.
But my Hyung, a bro of mine was there, and he just said, "Mom, this is you were talking to me about this yesterday about like your relationship with your mom. When we were out having drinks,
Right.
like, dude, this is the opportunity for you to like connect and forgive, and
Mhm.
this will make you better. I know it's hard, mom, but like don't turn away right now." That's basically what happened. Eugene, if you're listening to this, shout out to my bro Eugene in LA. But
What
anyways,
a brother.
yeah. So since then, I decided, oh, like I can be working on forgiveness. It's not like a one-time thing, but it's just like a continual process of contacting my mom when when I feel comfortable enough, and asking her questions about my past, like, and like talking to her, like, mom, like when you did this, it really made me angry. And the beauty of it is like I can do that now better because I speak Korean now as an adult, and I
Mhm.
can speak to her in Korean, which is pretty cool. So, um,
I love that.
it's
I
different
think
for everybody.
right, it is different for everybody, and I think, again, what I pull from that is forgiveness, just to
Forgiveness is huge. Yeah.
right, just to echo that, 'cause maybe that it feels like it's the last thing you wanna do, but it's more so even for yourself to forgive, for your own it's not gonna be like who's right or wrong, or like, it's not like you'll be losing points or whatever, if you forgive. And it's more just I don't know, I guess I kind of sense it as like an energy thing too, where you're releasing that thing that you're holding on to, even for yourself, right? Um, so forgiveness is huge, and I'm glad that you were able to do that. What was that like after then?
It's. I mean, this deserves its own episode, but
Yeah.
it's just. Since then, like it was. That was just a couple years ago, but it was immensely positive. It was immensely positive, and I'm so glad that I listened to not just that young, not just that bro, but another bro. Shout out to Andrew, and like because they both told me like at different times in the same like one of these guys I met up with, and he was like, mime, like the reason why you have these issues with like dating women is because of your relationship with your mom. And I know because we're both like Korean American bros, and like we've gone through the same thing, and you need to like you need to find a way to forgive your mom, because the relationship you have with your mom is the relationship you're gonna have with women. It sets like your
Mhm.
emotional expectations of women, and it's like, well, my mom didn't teach me Korean, and she spoiled me, and there's like, so like you're always, but then like, but your parents gave you life. If it's like if you had to choose, like it's either a value of one or zero. Like he didn't say this, but the idea is like you didn't have a choice. Like you could have been born into this family and as a Korean and as a Korean American, or you could have just not existed. He totally didn't say this, but it was something. The idea is like, like this is how all Korean people are, right? A lot of Korean people
Sure.
are kind of like set in their ways like this. Are you going to change all of Korea? Like life is hard. Like we're like it's not like people are trying to be jerks or whatever. Like you don't need to take it so personally. At least they brought us to America and that we could have some taste of the American dream and yada yada yada. That guy told me this, and then like the following night or the same no actually the same day that at nighttime I met up with another Korean American bro and we were having drinks and I was saying like, "Hey man, like sorry, like I'm not in my usual mood because like I'm going through stuff with like my parents and my mom and like I don't know what to do." And he said, "Oh, bro, I understand, man, because me and my dad like we don't talk anymore, blah 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 blah." And then the next day I saw my mom with
Right.
that same bro. It was very auspicious and uncanny. And then the weeks and the months and the years that followed, I've had fights with my mom. I've that I've gotten upset with her, but and I'm in speaking terms with her now. And like it was her birthday just yesterday. Happy birthday, mom! I love you. I can say that now and actually mean it. But like before I saw her, I couldn't do that. I couldn't
Mhm.
say because just the hate and the resentment, the bitterness, the anger is just so real. It's like, why couldn't you do this? But I realized like that doesn't help me,
Yeah.
right? And what my Korean American bros told me is even if just for you, just think of it selfishly for you, mime. Just think about the person you want to be and like what this hatred or this anger is going to do to you if
Right.
you let it affect you and the relationships you'll have with other women, with if you want to have any romantic or any intimacy with other women, like this thing with your mom is going to seep into it. So, um, so yeah, but so basically like and I actually and funny enough like I have a wonderful girlfriend now and we have a really good relationship and I think that probably has something to do with me like trying to forgive and connect more with my mom
Yeah.
because they're both Korean women. I don't know.
Man, wow. I am gonna want everyone to be listening to this episode. This that's some
Oh, that's a big
s-
compliment. Thank you, bro.
yeah, no, there's some knowledge bombs there, and I think um it's what I wanted to say out of that is that it's really important to have that support network around you to 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 challenge that, to have that awareness, to question things, to push you towards the discomfort, the hard things. The fact that your brothers are able to do that, right? Brothers from another mother, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. um,
Another
and
Korean mother.
yes, uh, and so it's really important to do that, and I also think it's to that aspect. Sometimes the change that you want to make, whether that is within someone else or or in the world or in your work or whatever, like sometimes the best thing is actually to address it in other ways. I kind of like to think of it this analogy of when you're trying to dig a hole. If you're trying to dig a deep hole, you don't dig just straight down. That's not as effective unless you have a drill or something. But in order to dig, you have to kind of dig around it, right? To get even deeper and deeper. And and sometimes then if we're trying to like address or like change our parents or whatever, like we want to try to do it almost directly or like, but sometimes it can be you can kind of take a more rounded approach and maybe that is taking it or uh, kind of looking at yourself as well, more of a 360 picture. So anyway, that's kind of what
Yeah, no,
I thought about.
that's great. Yeah, and actually, like, I don't know. Like, I sometimes I think, man, I should launch like a digital product or something about like how to deal with your Asian parents in a positive, healthy manner, right? Like, that's not just a blog post, but like a video series. Like, when
Yeah,
your mom says this, does it make you angry like this, and does it bring up your childhood like this, and
yeah,
does it make you resent your Asian heritage? Well, this is what you should do, or why don't you think about it this way? But like there's so many things we can talk about and I would actually do want to share like the because I like what you said, yeah, digging around the hole. And that's the thing, it's not like parent Asian, like depending on the Asian parent, right? They might be stuck in their ways. So if you go directly like hard on them, then like you'll meet resistance.
Yeah.
So if you try, that's like if you try to hit their fire with your fire, then it's like there might not be change. There'll be resistance. But then if you go at it with water in subtler ways around it by
Be
building
water,
trust,
my
by
friend.
yes, be watching my friend. Exactly. Um, then there are ways I think that are more effective than that.
Yeah.
But we and I'd like to get into that some other time. But I want to move into like a couple of questions because I think we're over our time. But I want to ask
No.
you directly, um, how can we strive as Asian males, for Asian males and males in general, how can we strive to become stronger, decisive, more assertive, while also being compassionate, empathetic, sensitive, and kind males?
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I think first of all, it might be kind of knowing that maybe there doesn't have to be that separation of, strength with something like compassion, something like empathy. Um, I think of those as, the masculine or feminine energies, where maybe we kind of, as a man, you want to be this masculine figure, and that might be in a form of this strength, this fire, this forcefulness kind of thing. And if there are any other softer features that is going to, weaken that, or that there's going to be like a chink in the armor kind of thing, um that will just, yeah, that will just like take us down. And I think the strength really does come from that softer source from to begin with. I think it's developing that almost inner core within us, so that if people do end up somehow penetrating the armor or getting past that barrier, that your strength from a core foundation, right? And so it's interesting that it's kind of that question is, almost in a way, and not that like you were doing this or anything, but like, when we differentiate strength and decisiveness, assertiveness from the softer, like compassion, empathy, and kindness, it they don't have to be mutually exclusive, and so I think if there is this desire to be more assertive too, it does come from that place of, all right, what are the emotions, like how can I sit with that feeling, how can I um embrace that discomfort that comes from challenging myself, you know?
Right.
Um,
What would
yeah,
you say to to young men? I mean, this is a question, but I still want to ask in this way. What would you say to young men, Asian or otherwise, who are finding a hard time feeling like they fit in, or getting in touch with their emotions, or connecting with family and people around them? Like, what would you tell your 15-year-old self, or
yeah,
me if I was 15-year-old mime again?
yeah, yeah. I'd say it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel that. It's okay to almost admit that not all of us are perfect, that um, we're gonna feel the lows, that we're gonna feel fears or anxiety in many different situations. Um, and so I'd say it's, the first step um, to any type of growth is that awareness, right? To really connect with that emotion, um, and and also know that you don't have to do it by yourself either. I think there is a certain point where you can build up your own foundation from a start, um, but then it's surrounding yourself with the the brothers or the family or even the other women or friends, just mentors, coaches, therapists, like surrounding yourself with people who will challenge you, who will, allow you and give you space to, work through your thoughts or beliefs or whatnot, and allow you to sit with those emotions. And those are rare people too, you know. Not everyone is going to have that emotional capacity, but if you can find that within others around you, like just surrounding yourself with the people who will provide that support.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer, bro. For I would like to reiterate myself. Yeah, awareness, getting in touch with yourself, connecting first and foremost with yourself, like understanding who you are, self awareness, right? Know thyself, Socrates, right? And having that awareness of yourself, your body, your emotions, and why you feel and behave in certain ways, right? That's like a lifelong journey. And then second is the community, and within that community are mentors. So you really, really want to seek mentors. So yeah, but seek self-awareness and seek others who are sages, people who have been on the path before you. And what I would tell my 15-year-old self is, mime, you out there, 15-year-old self listening to me from the future, reach out and talk to me. It's like reach out and talk to us, talk to the people in Badass Asian Dudes, join the community, reach out to other communities of of men, young men and women, or established men and women who are on positive paths in life, who are established,
Mhm.
who have been through some rough times, but are making the most out of life. Seek those people, and just ask them for guidance and see. Maybe not everyone has time for that, but I want to extend this to all my audience members and to whoever's listening. Like, you're going through a rough time and you don't feel like you have anyone to talk to, like, please message me, right? Like, I'm on the internet at Mime Time on Instagram, mime at mimetime.com. Like, I say this every episode, people can give me feedback, but it's like you're going through a rough time. Like, this is what I wanted when I was a kid. If I was
Mhm.
10 or 15 years old and I could just reach out to someone through the ether to help, who could maybe like listen to me, like, wouldn't that be something? So that's what I want to do here right now.
Right.
It's like it's a call to salvation. It's like, if you accept Mime Time into your heart as your Lord
Yeah.
and Savior right now, like, bro, I'm gonna help you out.
No, I appreciate you opening that up too. Yeah, there are people who don't bite, is what I'll say to that. I think for me, I think maybe that 15-year-old self is like, oh, if I did reach out, like I'm going to be
Very
taken advantage
skeptical. What
of.
if, yeah,
Exactly.
what if like I'm a weirdo? what if
Right.
what if Mime is actually like a serial killer? It's like, yeah, reach
Right.
out to me.
Right.
Dun 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 doo 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 doo. Psycho,
Oh man. Yeah, so I think yeah, there are good people out there, and not to say that we're going to be like the angels either, right? Um but that there are people who are going to, you know, provide that support. And um yeah, definitely reach out to me. I think I very much appreciate this space because I know what it was like to not have it too, so um yeah, thanks for this opportunity and space.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor. And I just want to say, like, I love your podcast, man, because I,
Thank
I,
you.
I thought, like, especially with your conversation with Sabo Shen when I first was, I'm like, man, like, I wish I had this when I was 15.
Yeah.
But thank
Yeah.
God now that people who are 15, I don't know why I keep saying 15 years old, maybe because that was a traumatic time in life. But yeah, or maybe that's like when you can kind of start thinking about these things
Yeah.
in a deeper level when you're like adolescence and your brain starts to form a bit more. Is, man, I wish I had this when I was 15. Why
Mhm.
didn't I have this when 50? Well, thank God that now there are 15-year-old Asian bros who can like do more than just fap to porn. They can change their lives. you know? um, yeah, but dude, like, thank you so much for what you do with your Human Up podcast and what you're doing for males, Asian or otherwise, around the world through your audience, with your audience.
Yeah, thanks for saying
And
that.
I just want to encourage you to keep doing that, and as well as your own personal journey. And I myself also like don't have everything figured out. I'm also figuring out how to get more in touch with my emotions. What is your next big project you'd like to share, and what's a way for people to get a hold of you or to follow your stuff?
Yeah, yeah, no, thank you again for having me. I think this is such a great conversation. We definitely went over. So, um, definitely you can find me at Victor on Instagram at underscore Victor Ung, Victor UNG. Uh, you can find me also through the podcast at Human Up. That's available on whatever streaming platforms. And then what a project that I'm working on right now, I'm actually doing a couple things where I we didn't even really get to talk about this, but the cannabis has actually really been a big part of my journey here and in this level of self-awareness. So I'm working on kind of a lot of workshops and a lot of like cannabis education and also combining that with mindfulness and introspection really help facilitate that type of looking into ourselves. And so that's a lot of what I'm working on. And then also creating something called an emotional gym, where I think this type of education, this type of awareness is not provided to us in the traditional routes, like in our schooling system. I'm actually, there are people that I've talked to, a couple of teachers and whatnot, and I'm super glad that they're incorporating more of this social and emotional learning in their curriculum. So I'm super excited for the next generation of people. But if you don't have that space, um, that's what I want to create here in this membership kind of program, is like all the best resources that has helped me so far, and then really bring in other experts and coaches and therapists to really hold space for people. So you can find that at my website victorung.com as well, and that's where you can find a lot of the other stuff that I'm working on too.
Victor, thanks so much for your time today, bro. I really appreciate it. At the crack of 11 a.m.
No,
From
I
the other side of
appreciate
the
you.
world.
It's like 4:30 now. Man.
Yeah, that's right. And it was totally worth it. It was totally worth it.
Yes. Yeah.
And now I'm gonna get some very good sleep. So, thank you, Mime Timers. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of Mime Time with our very special guest, Victor Ung. Thank you so much, bro. Talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you.